Very good, brothers and sisters. The previous video was cut short, so I've recorded the rest of our presentation. And so we were explaining the mechanism of gluttony, explaining how we might have problem and issue and anxiety, right? There is a natural process of looking for pleasure, which could be simple relaxation. And when the activity ends, we will go back and continue our life. And instead, gluttony, as I was mentioning, becomes an escape, right? So a mechanism that increases and increases and increases. And because the problem, I don't solve it, it becomes bigger and bigger, then I need to escape more and more, right? And then the escape itself becomes the problem. And this is what happens, right? Especially with addictions. Addictions grow, they don't remain small, because the amount of pleasure that is required grows, because biologically my body gets accustomed to that level of chemicals, and in order to produce the same effect I need more of those chemicals, and that's why the addictions grow. And so I begin to escape and maybe drink a beer and eventually become an alcoholic. I begin to gamble and I can lose all my money, right? I can play video games for an hour and I ended up playing the whole day long. Facebook the same, with social media now, right? Why do we scroll all that time? Because they become addictive, and the chemicals, right, to produce that experience of satisfaction, I need more and more and more. Pornography the same, I need more and more. But also, right, what happens with all the addictions, that not only I need more, I need stronger things to produce the effect. And this is why, right, I begin with maybe a beer and I ended up not only drinking a lot of beers, you drink other things, right? You begin to get drunk on scotch and vodka and rum and other drinks. You begin with soft drugs and you end up in heavy drugs, right? On hard drugs. Because that effect, the marijuana is no more enough, right? And so you need to try harder and stronger drugs. And the same with pornography. People begin with soft pornography and they ended up watching hardcore pornography, right? With then, things that are inappropriate. I cannot comment it because it's not proper, but you understand that I begin to watch soft pornography, ended up watching things that are less than human. There is no other way to put it. And it's not because I am depraved. It's that the addiction causes this to happen to me. And that's why certain sexual depravity, as we say, they're simply caused by the fact that as I begin to end up in the mechanism of gluttony and lust, this is what happens. But the true issue is this, right? When we solve out the problem, that there is a problem that needs to be, that I found an escape. And so we see it clearly in the gospel that we have proclaimed. What does the devil say to Jesus? If you are the Son of God, right? If God is good, if you are your Father, if He is your Father, ask these stones to become bread. So the temptation of gluttony is a temptation that wants to make a violence, that wants to change reality, where we refuse a reality, which is a stone, which is hard, whatever it is, the homeworks, a relationship, my parenting, the work, the loneliness, because for whatever reason I am alone, and I cannot accept this stone, this thing that is hard. And so it's a rejection of the cross. Gluttony is a rejection of the cross. This is why it's the first sin, because I reject the cross. I reject the basis of the Christian life, which is the cross, which is the sufferings are part of life. But I reject it. I cannot take that there is a stone and I want to make violence on it. We can see here the first cause for anger. We will look into it more when we will see the sin of anger. Here we see the first cause for anger. The cause is that there is a stone in my life that I cannot accept. There is a cross in my life that I cannot accept, and I want to change it. That is why many times when people come to confession and manifest their anger, I ask them, why are you angry? And they say, because I lack patience. And that's not the problem. The problem is that there is a stone in your life that you cannot accept it and you want to change it. That's why you get angry. The point instead is to learn to enter the cross. This is what the grace of God wants to give us, to be able to enter the cross and to discover eternal life. The devil tells us that the cross is wrong. It's the proof that God does not exist. And instead, Jesus Christ tells us that the cross is good. The cross is the way to heaven, that it is the proof that God loves us. Because that's how we experience his love, in the cross. So we see that gluttony is a rejection of the basic of the Christian life, which is the cross. And so someone who refuses to suffer, right, is someone who has a Peter Pan syndrome, because an adult, who is an adult? An adult is someone who has accepted to suffer, who has learned how to deal with suffering. And instead, a kid is someone who cannot suffer. So we see here, right, the problem. The problem is the rejection of the cross, wanting to make violence upon it. It's not just a rejection, it's a violence. That's why gluttony leads to anger, because you want to change it. You want to make violence upon that cross, that stone that has been given to you. And this is then the end of gluttony. What is? That you become unable to love. Because to love is to die, right? We speak about sacrificial love and unconditional love as if they were special categories. They are not special categories. They are what love is. Because to love is to desire the good of the other one, is to act for the good of the other one, not my good, the good of the other one. As I was saying the first day, right, the problem, what is the philautia, which is the love of self, and so I want to use things for my good, gluttony, and instead, love is to pass to the thou, but the thou, the T, is a cross. So I have to pass through the cross. I have to die to myself, to my own pleasures, to my own way of seeing things, to go to the other one. And so, but if I'm gluttonous and instead I want to use for myself, I cannot love. So deep down, the person who is gluttonous doesn't have love, cannot love. This is a big problem. This is the end of gluttony. This is why parents can parent deep down. What is the problem? They've lost the ability to love. Because to love the child is to suffer for them. To love the child is to say no. To love the child is to sometimes do things that they don't want, but that they need. Which means that they will reject you. They will be angry at you. One day, when they are 30 years old, they will recognize the truth. But when they're 10, they will not be happy. But that's to love them, to help them to grow. There is this beautiful passage in the Bible where Issachar, he sees this beautiful land, and he says the Bible that he bended his back and began to work. Right? Because he understood that what is beautiful needs to be tended, needs to be taken care of. It requires work. Everything that it is good, that is truly good in life, costs. If I want to have a career, I need to study, and to study hard. And then the work will be hard. But I will obtain something good, deeply good. If I never put the effort, if I never accept to suffer, I will never gain anything in life. I will never gain anything, right? That's when we speak about people taking shortcuts and ended up, doing a gangster and making millions illegally, killing people, right? It's the opposite of doing a real life where it costs. And so we see gluttony leads to, is a rejection of the cross. is a violence upon reality, and is a total distraction of charity. The main daughter, as we said already, of Gluttony is lust. And how does lust work? Well, by curiosity and fantasy, which I don't think there is much to be said about it, is very much self-explanatory. But it's interesting that lust comes from luxus, which means bent, broken, twisted, out of place, right? There is something wrong, right? There is something that is not in place. This is why lust leads to two things. Superficiality, in what sense? In the sense that when you see a person, right, you only see the surface, which is the skin. You don't look at the person, the heart, the thoughts, the feelings, right? That's why we say that there is an objectification of the person, which means that the person now has become an object. It's no more a person, it's an object. It's something that I use for my pleasure. Right? We can see it clearly in the scene of pornography. Why? Because nobody stopped to think about who's that man or who's that woman. Right? We don't think about their feelings, whether they are slaves of human trafficking, whether they are willingly doing it or they were forced. Maybe they were dragged. That's why many of these women, for example, suicide. They kill themselves because they cannot take to be destroyed in their dignity. And we never stop to think about it. Whose daughter is that? Whose sister is that? But what is she feeling? What is she thinking? Right? If we would do that, we would not watch it. Because to think that every time I'm watching a video, right, a porn video, I'm promoting sex trafficking, human trafficking. Right? Today, nowadays also we have a problem of these videos that we don't know who, with all these cameras, we don't even know who recorded them. With minors, it's a big problem. And every time we are watching the video, right, we are promoting that kind of industry. We are contributing to that sin. It's a big problem. Pornography is huge, the issue, right? Because we are objectifying, because we never thinking, but who's that? If only we stopped, probably we would not do it, because we could not bring ourselves to do that, right? And the other problem of objectification that we see in many couples is the reason why many times the wives are not willing to donate themselves to the husband. Why? Because they know that the husband is with them just for sex. The husband has not done the job that is required, because the sexual intimacy, right? Intimacy means what is deeper, what is profound, what is within. So the sexual intimacy is supposed to seal and promote the intimacy between the couple, which is the fact that the husband has this relationship with the wife, in which the husband is vulnerable, allows the wife to know what is inside, and is interested truly in the interior of his wife. So he asks, how are you doing? How are things, right? Many husbands haven't done this relationship, right? This personal relationship in a while. And so the wives refuse. Why? Because they feel an object. They don't feel treated as persons. This is lust, right? Now, this problem of objectification creates two problems, which are the real problem of lust. The first one is the inability to establish relationships. Because a relationship is between persons. An object I use. You don't talk with your hammer. It's a tool for a job. But if the other one I have objectified, the other person, the girl, the man, right? The same thing. I am using the other one, I'm not establishing relationships. But what's the problem? If I don't establish relationships, I don't feel loved. I will never feel loved. Because I'm dealing with an object, and an object gives me pleasure, but doesn't give me love. So the experience of love that as a human being I require to live is not there. Is not there. And it's a big problem because I'm not satisfied. So lust, which is supposed to satisfy me, right? This is what the temptation tells me. I will be satisfied. In reality, is empty. On the contrary, it empties me because I'm never establishing a true relationship with someone else. I cannot, because I have objectified people. Even when I am at school and I'm dealing with people, I'm at work, they are objects. They have become, all of them, objects. Even not sexual, but they are all objects. I cannot establish a relationship with them. I cannot talk with them. And so I will never feel loved. And the other problem is a self-identity. Who am I? Why this? Well, because if you look at Genesis 2, when Adam and Eve are created, unfortunately, in English, we lose it in translation, but Adam, right, is called Adam because he comes from the soil. He is a vase of clay. When does Adam become a man? Well, if you could read the Hebrew, you will see that Adam becomes a man the moment he meets the woman. And so it is only in this relationship with the woman in which Adam discovers who he is. No? Even today, right, even normal knowledge, what happens? To get to know something, you need to discover what it is different from. And so a bottle is different from a chair, right? I can realize the differences and categorize them differently and understand what each is individually from the differences. And the same thing is for me as a person. I can only understand who am I if I'm able to establish a relationship with someone else and realize how I am different from them. But if everybody else has become an object, they are an extension of me as an object because they're a tool I use, then there is no identity. I never have a proper relationship. I will never discover who am I then. And this is why we see today the problem of gender dysphoria, that there is a problem of gender identity. Why? Because of lust, because of the pornography, because of the hypersexuality in society that has destroyed the youth and their ability to relate to each other. They don't know who they are. They don't know. They don't know. They are lost. That's why they're lost. The problem is lust. We see it very clearly when in a couple, the parents have switched roles, right? When the father is not a man and the mother is not a real woman, right? But for whatever reason, they are switched roles. And so you have, for example, a father who is very weak and a mother instead who is very strong. So they have switched roles. What happens? The children grow up with a problem in their sexual identity. Why? Because they've not related properly with their parents. They have received wrong signals of what it means to be a man and a woman. Because in the church we do believe they are equal, men and women. But in terms of dignity, no one is superior. But we are different. We're not the same. Right? If we could read biology for what it tells us that we develop different. The hormones are different, we develop different. It does not mean that we are better one over the other. That's why in a couple you need two. The two will be one. There is a complementarity, which is good. Right? But now, because of lust, I have lost the relationship, and so I cannot discover who I am. And this creates a problem of self-identity. And so, not only I don't know who I am, but also I never feel loved because I cannot enter into a relationship. And that's why many youth desire to die. That's why lust deep down brings a desire to die. Because of this. Because I am not loved and I don't know who I am. I am lost. That's why people who are, even after having done surgery for transition, why do they still suicide? It is not because the world does not accept them. It is because they don't know who they are. It is because they're unable to enter into a relationship and so experience love. This is the problem. The problem, the world is lying to us, telling us that it is our acceptance. It's not tolerance. It is that they don't know who they are and they cannot love. This is the problem of lust. The problem of lust is the desire to die. This is why we see the youth today, they're always sad. You see a youth who is struggling with pornography, especially, boy or girl, right? You see these girls that maybe already in high school have been used by other boys sexually, especially in college, and they're always sad because of these damages that are done to them. It is terrible. It is terrible. So how to fight? Well, for gluttony, obviously, the rule is fasting. Nothing to say. This is the first of the three medicine, right? Fasting, almsgiving, and prayer. We will see each one of them. Fasting, rule number one. Practice number one, to fight gluttony. It's very important, right? The Lord answers to the devil, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. Fasting is not about refusal to eat. It's like for Thanksgiving, right? What you do, maybe you fast a day before because for Thanksgiving you want to eat well, right? Or now for Christmas, the same. And this is the point of fasting. In fasting, I withdraw, right, some pleasure, right? I fast. I desire, for example, not to eat, not to play video games, not to do something. But why? Because I'm creating a space to eat something better. Jesus Christ doesn't say that man should not live by bread. He says he shouldn't live by bread alone. The problem is that we want bread alone. Instead, fasting is about creating a space, leaving the stomach empty, so that something better can fill me. And what is this something better? It's the love of God. Right? This is why, if you want to pray, you need to fast. Many people tell me, Father, I don't have time. You have time. Wake up earlier, fast from sleep. Right? Use less social media. You have time. Cut the social media, fast from social media and pray. You will experience joy. Like when you do a diet, right? What happens? At the beginning of the diet, it is hard. But then when the toxins have been expelled, you feel energy, they feel joy, there is the desire to do everything. And the same thing, it happens in the spirit. If I begin to fast, I receive energy, right? It is hard at the beginning, but then the fasting eliminates the sin begins to go down, the life of Christ, if I'm doing correctly, enters into me, and then I have the energy to do things. Not only that, I discovered that in 5 hours I did nothing, but when I'm fasting, in 1 hour, I can do what I was supposed to do in 5, because God provides. So we see, very important, fasting is not abstinence again, it's not to deny food, but it's to create a space for something better to fill me. And then, instead, for lust, the only way is to flee. To flee. Like with lust, we need to be chickens. We cannot think, I'm strong, I can do it. There is a famous story from St. Teresa of Avila, in which Teresa used to keep an orange on the desk. Why? Because she liked it. So she said, if I cannot resist it, how can I resist other temptations? Remember, gluttony is sin number 1. If I cannot deal with gluttony, I cannot deal with any of the other ones. But for gluttony, you can keep the orange on the desk and fight not to eat it. With lust, you cannot keep an image on your desk. You will fall. That's why in the tradition of the church, it says, never look at a woman for 3 seconds in the eyes, because you are cooked, as we say in Italian, right? That's it. The sin of lust, the demon of lust, will make you fall. So the only way is to flee. I always say to husbands and wives, don't go on Facebook and look for your friends, because everything begins innocently, but in a moment of weakness, the devil will come and convince you that man or that woman love you more, and you will end up in adultery. And I tell you, because I told people, they have not listened to me, and then I have a line in front of my office of people who have almost committed adultery. Why? Because of social media, because they did not flee. Right? So you have friendship, you keep friendship of the opposite sex. Why do you could not have friends? Right? In the vow marriage, you said, do you vow to follow the path of marriage? There is a path. I need to be careful, right? I need to be careful. Who are my friends? It's dangerous to go out for a coffee with a person of another sex, especially if you do constantly. You will fall. The only way to escape lust is to flee. Avoid the occasions of sin. You need to flee. You need to flee. You need to flee. There is no other way. But this is a very hard fight. Very hard. We cannot do it alone, especially in today's society. That's why I tell always parents, help your children. Also the spouses, help each other. I know couples where the wife has total control of the phone of the husband. Well, not to beat him up, but because she loves him. And she knows that he needs her help. That's why they got married. You got married to help each other. To help each other to go to heaven. And that's the job. And you, as a parent, are supposed to help your children. Many times youth come to me, problem of pornography, and I said, speak with your parents. But they're afraid to be beaten up. No, on the contrary, we cannot fight alone. Obviously we need prayer. Obviously we need prayer. But in today's society, we might need more. We need help, someone to help us, right? So to have an idea of what I mean, especially with lust, right? I want to to present some helps I know. I wasn't paid to sponsor these products. These are products that I've come to know in my ministry, right? That other people that I know that struggle with this problem have presented to me. That's what I present them, okay? So Custodio and Covenant Eyes are two apps or software that can be put on your devices, right? So for example, you put it on a laptop and then someone else has on their phone the app, and there is a code that blocks it, so you can use your laptop safely, and the other one has blocked it, right? So you cannot go to a certain website or things like that, but also they get an email with your browsing history, right? And they get alert if you try to go somewhere where you're not supposed to, right? So this gives accountability. It's very good. Obviously, it's between two people because you can, if you know that you have the problem, you cannot have the code. Someone else needs to have it. So that's why, something you can buy with the kids also, right? To protect the devices. Very important today. Obviously, there are some people who are genius, they can break everything, but at least this makes it hard, and for the majority of people, it will prevent it. With iPhone, right? If you have an iPhone, there is screen time. If you enter screen time, there is the ability to block content. You can block apps. You can eliminate the Apple Store, the browser. So you can make the iPhone to make only phone calls and text messages. You can download the app that you need, and then someone, your wife, your parents, right? Someone can block it, put a code, and then everything else gets blocked. Your apps that you wanted will work on the background internet, but you won't be able to surf, you won't be able to browse, to do different things, and so you're safe, right? And so with iPhone screen time, it's very easy to do all of these things. Many Amazon and Netflix, all of these companies that provides streaming have parental controls that can be set up. Again, someone else puts the code, not the person who struggles, right? Whoever is stronger in the family can put the code. And then there are phones actually that have been built for this problem, so that they have no internet or they have no browser at all. It cannot be put, so they're totally safe. For example, the Light phone, which works as a Kindle practically, is the same technology. But if you are afraid that it is going to look bad, there is the Y phone that at least looks like a real phone. It is made together with Samsung. And again, it works on e-ink, like the Kindle, but at least it looks more normal. And then especially for kids is the Bark phone, which is also from Samsung, which practically your regular phone controls it totally. And so as a parent, you can mirror totally what your kid is doing, even reading their messages. Okay, so everything is mirrored It's for their safety, obviously. You need to explain that this is an act of love to protect them. It's to protect them, right? It's like Red Riding Hood, right? She's not supposed to go to the forest because it's dangerous, not because you don't want her to have fun. That's it. And the same thing is to protect them, is to help them. It's an act of love. That's why I say don't fight alone. Help your kids, help your spouses, help those in need. These are ways in which this can be done very easily. So we have finished our presentation, okay? Next time is going to be January 14th, 7 p.m. again, it's a Tuesday. For next time, I suggest you to read these books. Okay, there are books that somehow, there are books of the Bible which help to understand better the spiritual life, but also some of the things we've been explaining, as you read them, your reading of these books will be enlightened, because now you can understand the background. This is not just for next time, okay? You can read them by the end of May, by May, when we're going to have the last talk. But in these months, it would be good if you can read these books. It will really help you, okay? Bye.